So a few weeks back, my team gathered clips of different counselors and what they had to say, or even content creators, and told me to react on that.
Meanwhile, back in the lowlands,
This dude has done his MBA from ISB. Alright, he's run a company in Gurgaon for the longest time, and I admire what he's done. But as a content creator, he's cringe. I started getting a lot of WhatsApps and DMs asking me to do reaction videos to what people had to say about MBA programs. And so in today's video, I'm going to do just that. My team has arranged several clips of content creators as well as counselors talking about MBA programs in India, MBA programs abroad, whether you should do them, whether you should not. And I'm going to have a look at each one of them and react to them one by one. If you're new to this channel, my name is Ameya. I'm a study abroad counselor and I've helped more than 1,000 students get into top ranked universities across the world. And on YouTube, I make videos that help you make the right study abroad decision. Do share and subscribe to this channel. It will be a win-win for the both of us.
Which country to choose when you're planning to study abroad? Number one list when it comes to education is the US, followed by UK, followed by Canada, then comes Australia as well as New Zealand. Now there are multiple opportunities coming up. But you to ask where your relatives are. If your friends, family, somebody's already gone there abroad, वो check करिए, वो best रहेगा.
Okay, so the person on the screen that we have, I think he runs his own CAT coaching classes called as CAT King, CET King, something like that. And he seems to be ranking MBA programs or countries for MBAs, right, from 1 to 5. Now, I have a problem with this sort of a ranking. You can't actually rank countries for MBA programs because there are several criteria that you need to look for. I think the first important thing that you need to think about is which is the country that you want to build your career in. That country obviously should get preference over all the other countries. So yes, you might say the US is number one in terms of job opportunities, but if your goal is to settle down in Australia or New Zealand, well then guess what, US isn't number one because a US MBA degree isn't going to allow you to build your network in those other countries, right? So this is one factor. I think the other factor that you need to consider is also the budget, because typically MBA programs in the US tend to be more expensive than MBA programs in Europe, right? So I think budget also becomes a factor. And then I think the third factor is also which industry you want to work in. Certain countries are known to be stronger in some industries than others. So let's say you want to become, you want to work in the tech industry, right? And you want to work in the product manager role, then yes, doing an MBA in the United States might be the best option for you. But what if you want to get into something like sports management? Then probably Australia is a better country to go to. So I understand that for the purposes of a reel, he's trying to rank countries, all right? So the intention is noble, but the reality is that you have to take a far more nuanced view, and which country you go to actually does depend upon what your long-term career goals are and what your budget is.
Is an MSF really sort of the way to go for a consulting job? So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so MSF is the way to go for investment banking jobs, investment management jobs, wealth management jobs, trading jobs. Of course, consulting is a great job, is a great career for which MBA makes perfect sense. That's a good match there, right? Because you have management, you have some marketing, all of that, right? But if you are interested in investment banking, trading, working in the corporate finance of a company, right? So if your path is through finance, then you should do a finance degree. If your path is, I want a general understanding of how to manage companies, right? Then yeah, MBA would be perfect. So if you are interested in McKinsey, etc., go for an MBA. But if you are going to go for something specific for a financial institution, I will say generally, then do an MSF. That would be fine.
So I agree with his advice, but only in part, and I'll explain why. He's right when he says that if you want to get into investment banking, sales and trading, those sorts of things, then an MS in finance is more optimized or fine-tuned for those sorts of roles, while an MBA is more optimized for consulting type of roles. But the other factor over here is your age as an applicant. You must understand that in MS and finance degrees, mostly the kids who apply have 0 to 2 years of work experience, whereas those who apply for MBA programs have around 4 to 6 years of work experience. So let's say you're at a stage of your career where you already are 4 or 5 years in, and now you want to get into finance, then you probably don't have an option but to apply for the MBA in finance, right? Rather than an MS in finance, because while you might apply for this sort of a program, you A, might not get selected, and B, even if you do get selected, you might get recruited for entry-level jobs. So what he's saying right from a curricular standpoint, but you also need to take your age into account and then decide whether you want to go for an MS in finance or an MBA. Again, go for an MS in finance if you're young, 0 to 2 years of experience, and go for an MBA if you have anywhere between 4 to 6 years of experience.
Vishal, are these top schools really worth it for MBA? Can you rank them?
Well, I think I can. Come, let me show you. First, we have UT Dallas, budget friendly with STEM certified program, perfect for visa advantages. Definitely a B tier. On number 2, we have HEC Paris, which is a consulting powerhouse. 37% of grads land at McKinsey, BCG, or Bain. Clearly a S tier. On number 3, we have Duke Fuqua, which is known for teamwork culture and strong consulting placement. Solid A tier. On number 4, we have Scalar, which is a top choice for tech and sustainability focused careers in Atlanta. This one is a B tier. On number 5, we have IE Business School, which is a global hub for entrepreneurs and innovation thinkers. This is a strong A tier. On number 6, we have Wharton Business School, the gold standard for finance, shaping global banking leaders. Undoubtedly S tier. On number 7, we have Rice University, personalized MBA experience with strong ties to energy and healthcare. Comfortably a B tier. On number 8, we have University of Edinburgh, which offers a 12-month fast-track program for leadership careers. A solid A tier. On number 9, we have London Business School, which offers 91% placements, clearly a S tier. And lastly, we have Essex Business School, a leader in luxury brand management, absolutely A tier. So all in all, every school in this list have something to offer. Your dream career in finance, consulting, or maybe the tech starts with choosing the right MBA program.
So there's a lot of questionable advice in this video. First off, this person starts explaining different business schools and putting them in different tiers and claims that these are the 10 business schools, best business schools in the world. But there's no explanation of how these 10 business schools have been selected in the first place. And so it's very questionable because if you were to look at rankings, many of the business schools from this list don't even make it to the top 50 business schools of the world. So I have one problem over here because he's not being very upfront about how he's categorizing the business schools. I think the second issue is that he's not very clear as to what process or method he has used to put these business schools in different ranking tiers. And I'll give you one example. So he puts UT Dallas and Georgia Tech both in the same tier, right? Now, in my mind, if you ask me, if you check out the placement details, what you'll quickly realize is that UT Dallas's placement is nowhere close to Georgia Tech's placement when it comes to their MBA program. The Georgia Tech MBA program is far more selective, far more rigorous, has better placements across different industries. So I don't know on what basis he's actually doing this sort of tier ranking. Seems to me that this video was probably made as clickbait or for views or for engagement. Don't take such advice seriously, alright? Whenever someone is doing a ranking of any business schools or MBA programs, first try to figure out whether that person is grounding their judgment on the basis of data, and secondly, then try to figure out whether the person is using the data in the correct way to place the business schools in the right tier. If either of these criteria are not met, don't take that person seriously.
CA versus MBA. आइए देखते हैं. CA क्लियर करने के लिए 4-5 साल लग जाते हैं.
Not this guy again. Ankur Variko. So I did a reaction video before and I explained how I used to like him better when he was a CEO. But it seems like my team wants me to go through a world of pain, and so I have no option but to review his video again. So anyway, let's see what he has to say, and I'll do my best to give him a fair shot.
के लिए 4-5 साल लग जाते हैं. 10% का पास रेट है. MBA 2 साल में हो जाता है. करीब 25 लाख रुपए लगते हैं. लेकिन पे आउट बहुत अलग है. CA की स्टार्टिंग जॉब 8 से 10 लाख. MBA सीधे 12 से 15 लाख रुपए से शुरू करेगा, लेकिन MBA की EMI ही 35-40 हजार रुपए होगी. 4-5 साल के बाद CA बन चुके हैं फाइनेंस मैनेजर. अब कमा रहे हैं 18 से 22 लाख रुपए स्टेबल आवर्स. MBA इतने दौरान में एक दो स्विच मार चुके हैं. 45-50 लाख रुपए कमा रहे हैं, लेकिन वीकेंड्स पे भी फ्लाइट है, वर्क लाइफ बैलेंस का कोई कॉन्सेप्ट नहीं है. 8वां-9वां साल आते आते सीनियर मैनेजर ऑलमोस्ट CFO रूट पे जा चुके हैं. 45-40 लाख रुपए कमा रहे हैं. MBA VP बिजनेस लेवल तक पहुंच चुके हैं, करीब 80 लाख रुपए. लेकिन छुपा हुआ इकोनॉमिक्स क्या है? CA ने CA बनने के लिए 5 साल इन्वेस्ट कर दिए, लेकिन MBA ने MBA बनने के लिए 25 लाख रुपए. 35-40 तक आते आते CA 2 या 3 गुना ज्यादा सेव कर पा रहा है फ्रॉम एन MBA, एंड मोस्ट लाइकली हैज बेटर वर्क लाइफ बैलेंस.
Okay, so I'm going to give him credit upfront for not being cringy in this video. He has talked facts, alright, so I will give him credit for that. However, I take question to some of the numbers that he's mentioned over here. So he says that people who do an MBA have lower savings than those who do a CA. I don't know in what context he's talking about. I mean, if he's talking about the Indian context, then maybe he might be correct. But if you look at MBA programs abroad, starting salaries are extremely high. Especially if you're going to a top-ranked business school, say in the US or in the UK, the starting salary is going to be nowhere lesser than 1.2 to 1.5 crores, plus add-on bonuses, joining bonuses, performance bonuses, a percentage of the deal size if you're into something like sales or into finance or something. So if you're taking the context of going abroad, then what he's saying is not true. But the other parts of what he does mention in terms of work-life balance are true. I know a lot of people who've done MBA from top-tier programs, gotten recruited by top consulting and finance firms. And yes, it's right. They don't have peace of mind. They are traveling weekends. They're working, 70, 80 hours a week, right? So that part of the video, I do agree with him. But in terms of the payback and in terms of the ROI, I think it's a country-by-country decision or calculation that needs to be made. You can't just blanket say that, okay, an MBA person is going to have less savings than a CA. Also understand that a lot of business schools have started giving scholarships, not in India, but those abroad. I know of students who have 40, 50, even 60% scholarship for their MBA program. So that also brings the cost of education down. And your EMI might not be as high as well.
Tom, I know it's your first day, but we could really use your help.
You got it.
Thanks, we're just in a bit of a jam. All this has to get out today.
Yeah, I don't do shipping.
Oh, no, it's very easy. We use FedEx.com. Anybody can do it.
You don't understand. I have an MBA.
Oh, you have an MBA. In that case, I'll have to show you how to do it.
FedEx.com makes shipping so fast and easy, even an MBA can do it. Relax, it's FedEx.
Yeah, so this is really a joke on MBA students, and I think the joke over here is the grad who's done his MBA doesn't see it fit to do data entry sort of roles, and therefore he tells the other person, the other lady, with that intention to give him a different job, a more mentally challenging job. But the lady says that, oh, you're an MBA, so probably that means you can't even do this much. And you know what? She's not entirely wrong. I have seen a trend amongst business school students, especially those from top rank programs. They come out of an MBA program feeling that they're superior to others. So like, let's say you do an MBA in marketing, then the expectation is that, I've got to do some sort of fancy strategy job. But guess what? Marketing starts with sales. Unless you don't know how to sell to someone, how to talk to people on the phone, unless you don't roam around doing field sales, get kicked out of different suppliers' offices or vendors' offices 10 times, how are you going to understand how to build a marketing strategy? So I think the point over here is well taken, that MBA grads need to get off their high horses and do some actual work. Trust me, the best MBAs are not those who graduate from the best business schools necessarily. They're those people who take the degree and understand that they've got to start from the bottom and work their way to the top. It makes you a much better manager. It makes you much more grounded. All right. And frankly speaking, you're more likely to succeed, in a CXO level role if you've done things, even the job that a frontline employee in the company is doing. There's a reason why, if you take a look at the S&P 500 companies, the ones that are the most successful are actually run by CEOs who have a habit of actually building the product themselves or doing sales themselves, right? So just because you do an MBA doesn't make you better than others, doesn't mean that you necessarily need to have a cabin or a team from day one, all right? So swallow that pride and do whatever job the company tells you. You'll get rewarded in the long run.
जिनका भी भाई 10 साल के ऊपर का एक्सपीरियंस है, बीइंग ऑनेस्ट, इंडिया में आपके लिए कुछ नहीं पड़ा हुआ है. IIM अहमदाबाद, बैंगलोर, कलकत्ता, सबके सेशंस होते हैं, सबके 1 year एग्जीक्यूटिव मैनेजमेंट प्रोग्राम है. पर मैं बोलूंगा, इफ यू वांट टू स्टडी विद सिमिलर काइंड ऑफ पीपल विद सिमिलर वर्क एक्सपीरियंस, स्टैनफोर्ड, हार्वर्ड, येल, वॉटन, HEC, पेरिस ऑफ द वर्ल्ड is a better choice for you. You'll have a good exposure for them. और अपने आप से क्वेश्चन पूछो, 15 साल के बाद MBA करनी चाहिए कि नहीं करनी चाहिए? अगर करनी है तो करो.
Yeah, you know what? He's actually right about this. So let's say you're 10 years into your career and you say that, hey, you know what, I want to do an MBA. Now there are a few options. You can do an executive MBA, which typically these are part-time programs, or you can do advanced management programs either in India or abroad. And the point he's trying to make over here is that doing one such program, an executive MBA program or an advanced management program, is better if you do it from a top business school abroad than if you do it in India. And the reason for that is, generally, my experience tells me that students who go for these 10-year, these advanced management programs in India, these programs are not that expensive. So it's almost anyone and everyone who's applying for these programs, whereas such programs abroad are pretty expensive. So if you believe the notion that half the value of an MBA is the network that you build, then if you go for the advanced management programs or the executive MBA programs abroad after 10 years of experience, you're gonna have better peer groups over there, people who are more successful because they can afford that program in the first place, which means that they were successful to begin with, right? So that's one aspect. The second thing is, if you have 10 years of experience, most business schools in India will probably reject you, all right, in the interview round because you're far too old. But you can go abroad, and there are a few business schools, especially those in Europe, schools such as IMD in Switzerland or HEC in Paris, where they do accept students who have 10 to 12 years of work experience, and that is not considered abnormal at all. So you also have a higher chance of getting selected at these top tier business schools abroad if you are an older candidate. So I do completely agree with his assessment of older candidates.
Actually, MBA Tech, so it's an integrated course.
What is MBA Tech?
It's an integrated course of engineering with MBA from Ameya.
तो पहले से बोलते तुम वैसे भी इंजीनियरिंग की बात कुछ करने नहीं वाला टेक्निकल हम भी डिसाइड करना तुम्हारा.
Yeah, MBA Tech sounds like two fancy words which when combined together actually don't mean anything. So if any university is telling you that they're giving you an MBA tech program, you probably want to run far away from that, university unless and until that course is firmly established. Because guess what? You might think that you're getting knowledge from two different areas. It doesn't work that way. The way the industry sees you is that you have 50% knowledge of business and 50% knowledge of technology, which makes you 0% good for anything, right? So don't go for such programs. So he's right about that. Completely agree with it.
Okay, so our last video got y'all talking. Is it actually possible to make 100K in Spain? Spoiler alert, yes. It's challenging, but far from impossible. It comes down to your networking, the company, and your ability to sell yourself. So education plays a huge part. Top business schools in Spain like ESA, ESADE, and IE Business School can be your launchpad, not just for the knowledge, but for the network that comes alongside it. And that's because alumni connections are often where these golden opportunities present themselves. Being an expert can significantly bump up your value. So be selective with the internships or projects that you choose to improve your specialization. Think about roles in data science, AI, or financial management. So if you've got it, flaunt it. Companies in Spain value global perspectives and experiences. It shows that you can handle the constantly changing landscape of business. And this one is super underrated, but your ability to lead others effectively to hit great benchmarks will open you up to management positions with higher salaries. So is 100K the norm? No. But is it possible? Yes. You just gotta put in the work.
I completely agree with him. So for those of y'all who are not familiar with the job market in Spain, it is pretty tough. Spain has a youth unemployment rate of 25%. That same number in India is only 9%. So getting a job in Spain is difficult enough. And on top of that, it is one of the laggards of the European Union, which means the salaries in Spain are lower than in other countries like, say, for example, France or the UK, right? Having said that, getting a 100K job is possible if you go to one of the three business schools that he mentioned in the video, IESE, ESADE, and IE, I think it was. So those three pretty much are the IM ABC of Spain, right? But over and above that, he explains to students that you've got to choose your projects carefully, you've got to choose your industry carefully. I would just add one thing over there. So if you're going to Spain or rather any country, and if you want a really high paying job, chances are that you're going to find that either in investment banking or you're going to find that in consulting or in venture capital. And I know from experience of a few friends of mine who've done their MBA abroad that typically these companies, these elite companies, bulge bracket investment banks, NBB consulting firms, they tend to recruit students with high GMAT scores in addition to being from good business schools. So even if you get into these business schools, make sure that your GMAT score is high. If you've taken the 10th edition of the GMAT, the score needs to be above a 730 or a 740. And if you are taken the GMAT Focus Edition, then make sure that your GMAT score is at least a 695 or 705 or higher than that. So that actually dramatically increases your chances of getting those high-paying jobs.
सर आप मजे करना किसके साथ आए हो आप कलीग ये बॉस है you are younger right तो सर आपको ऐसे शर्म फील होती है और आपने ऐसा क्या किया कि आप इनके बॉस हैं एमबीए करके आई होगी किसी बड़ी जगह से है ना कहाँ से एमबीए करी तुमने करा ही नहीं है फिर मैंने कर ली थी
Before I comment on this video, I'm noticing a pattern here. My team has added a lot of jokes. So clearly they feel that my life is boring, which in honesty it is. All I do is I work, I go home, I read and I sleep. That's all I do, right? But coming to the joke, so I think the joke over here is on grads who do MBAs. Like again, like when you do an MBA, you kind of assume that you're going to be the boss of everyone. That's not how it works. You've got to build your credibility in any company that you join. So again, if you do an MBA, don't assume that you're going to be the boss on day one. Be ready to do whatever job your company gives you and work your way up the corporate ladder, right?
But engineering,
another joke, amazing.
मैंने डिसाइड किया कि अब मैं सब अलग करूंगा. अभी हो गया. I'll do what no one else is doing. So I did what no engineer in this country ever does. I took CAT and went for an MBA. CAT में मेरा परसेंटाइल था 99.3. First world problems. अब लोगों को लगा कि अरे 99.3 फोड़ा है तो जाएगा अहमदाबाद, बैंगलोर, कैलकाटा. Different. I went to a college called FMS Delhi. FMS Delhi is one of India's best B school that no one has heard of. मैं पहुंच गया उधर. सबने बोला कि अरे लाइफ बहुत डिफरेंट हो जाएगा. रे कहाँ इंजीनियरिंग है, डाइवर्सिटी जो होता है इंडियन बी स्कूल में, ओह भूल जाएगा तो इंजीनियरिंग भूल जाएगा। मैं कहा अरे सही है। और एक्चुअली ऐसा हुआ, जब मैंने एमबीए शुरू किया तो हर टाइप के, हर बैकग्राउंड के लोग थे क्लास में। देयर वर पीपल फ्रॉम ह्यूमैनिटीज, आर्किटेक्चर, इकोनॉमिक्स, फैशन डिजाइनिंग, लॉ, ये सब मिला के बैच का 1% थे। बाकी 99% इंजीनियर थे।
Yeah. So I have 2 points to make about this video. Of course, the joke is really good. But when it comes to FMS Delhi, those of you all who haven't heard about this business school should certainly check it out. FMS Delhi, like he said, is one of India's best business schools that no one has heard about. And I can't figure out why that is. Probably because they don't spend money on marketing. But typically it's rated in the top 10 business schools of India. And guess what? It comes at a fraction of the cost of other top ranked schools like an ISB or an IIM. I don't remember the exact fees, but last I checked, it's probably what 1 or 2 lakhs for the entire MBA program, which is amazing when you consider the fact that IIM Ahmedabad is what 34-35 lakhs and ISB is something like close to 40 lakhs. So you kind of get the same education and similar kind of jobs for a fraction of the cost. So ROI wise, it does make a whole lot of sense. Now coming to his other point, the main joke, which is that you have people from other fields in the MBA program in India, but they make only 1% of the batch. Now this is true, and if you think about it, it's because of the way how our selection process works. So majority of the weightage of your selection is based on your CAT score in India, and CAT has the quant section, and who does well in the quant section? It's the engineers, because they've been doing that for 4 years in college. So that does give them an unfair advantage over other kids who've gone to other parts. And I think this is the biggest complaint I have of Indian MBA programs. When you go abroad, the application review process is very holistic. So yes, your GMAT scores or your GRE scores are one aspect, but they're looking at your work experience, they're looking at your life experience, they're looking at your extracurriculars, they're looking at your essays. And so the class that they compose is far more diverse than the class that you get in India. And I think engineers or people from any field benefit from interacting with those from other fields, right? Because they bring another way of thinking, they bring another angle of thinking. So while he is joking about this fact, I think the subtle message over here is that, hey, before deciding which MBA program to go to, also think a bit about what sort of diversity you get. And if you're talking about diversity, the programs in Europe and United States are far more diverse than what you can get in India. No questions asked.
For as many people to become entrepreneurs as possible. I think that's the way forward for India. In my personal opinion, colleges are dead. If you're 25 and going to MBA college today, you must be some kind of idiot, if you ask me. And I think 5 years from now, this trend will be exaggerated, expedited, and a lot more people will not be opting into entrepreneurship, but they will have to choose it.
Because there wouldn't be any jobs.
There would be lesser jobs in the traditional sense.
Can we cut that? We go to a lot of college.
Okay, so this is the controversial clip by Nikhil Kamath, who's one of the founders of Zerodha. And I remember watching this entire podcast. So his claim was that students who are doing an MBA are idiots. Why? Because there's not going to be any demand for MBA grads in the future, because there's not going to be jobs because of AI. And therefore, more people actually should be doing entrepreneurship, and MBA programs aren't good for entrepreneurship. So this was his entire thesis. Now, I have multiple issues with this, all right? So first of all, if you're saying that the value of an MBA program isn't there if you want to do entrepreneurship, I take issue with that for 2 reasons. One is that if you do your MBA from a very top-ranked university or business school, you are going to be studying with or working on projects with future CXOs, VCs. You might find your co-founder over there. You might, raise your round of funding over there. So I think that's one reason. I think the second thing is that you're underestimating the ability of business schools to actually rapidly adapt their curriculum to AI or to prepare grads for future sorts of roles. If you just take a look at the top 100 business schools in the world, including some of the IIMs, what you will quickly notice is that they have already started incorporating elements of data science, programming, AI, right? So you're underestimating the ability of business schools to change the curriculum. And for these 2 reasons primarily, I don't agree with this particular logic. Now coming to the larger point, at the beginning of the clip, he mentions that, colleges are dead. I think that's a big claim to make. I don't see colleges going anywhere. If you think going to college is only about, studying a particular curriculum, then you're missing out on the fact that college is also a place for you to socialize. All right. Now, no matter what sort of technology we have in the future, what sort of jobs we have, one thing I know for sure is that man is a social animal, and we are going to want to interact with others around us. We're going to want to develop our social skills. developing social skills is something that happens for everyone in college, whether in India or whether abroad. And I think colleges that focus on the social angle part of it, along with the curriculum, will be the colleges that thrive in the future. Because frankly speaking, the way the world is going, people are more and more on their screens, and social skills are what are lacking. So colleges, whether they're engineering colleges, business schools, humanities, social sciences, whatever it is, if they start focusing on building the right interpersonal skills, those are the colleges that will succeed. And yes, everything else you can anyway learn from YouTube, right? So I don't agree with his thesis because he underestimates how colleges are actually evolving. So thank you for watching today's reaction video. So as you all saw today, we did a reaction video on what people had to say about MBA programs or countries for different MBA programs. If you want me to do a reaction video on some different program, then do let me know in the comments. My team will take that up. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.